Hey TV fans, Bored now back with you. On this video I'm going to be talking about the X-Files Season 2 Episode 19. The episode is called Dod Kalm and it originally aired on March the 10th, 1995. It's directed by Rob Bowman and it's written by Howard Gordon and Alex Gunzer. And Alex Gunzer, I know, is a writer on The West Wing, and I mention that because I'm covering The West Wing on the channel at the moment. It's a cheap plug for that show and those reviews. It got a Nelson rating of about 17.1 and it holds a 7.4 on IMDb. So this is the ghost ship episode, a ghost ship in Norway, and it's all linked to this mysterious rapid aging of this crew and a disappearance of this crew of a ship which docked in 1991. And Mulder links this mystery to the Philadelphia experiment that gets mentioned, and he believes the experiments were dropped but then later carried on by the military and it involved aliens. So that's his explanation for what happened to this crew. So him and Scully go to Norway. Of course it's not really Norway because it's the X-Files, it's all filmed in Canada, but in the storyline they go to Norway and they get someone who seems to have a little bit of history with the ship and with like the crew to take them out to the ship. It appears to be deserted, but they eventually find some bodies, and again you've got the rapid aging thing, and there's the whole mystery about what actually happened to them. And where it all leads is that there's a subplot involving the water in the ship, which it turns out is the reason for the rapid aging. So I guess a little bit of a swerve in that sense, because it turns out then the link to the Philadelphia experiment actually doesn't play out, not directly anyway, but Mulder and Scully over the course of the episode, they're put in jeopardy and we actually get to see them rapidly aging. So this episode is not a favourite of mine. I find it a bit of a dud. I find it pretty tedious to watch, especially in the back half of the episode. It's a bit of a weird one where it sort of rushes through quite a lot of plot and it doesn't feel like it does that much with the plot, and that there could have been a bit more mystery, because definitely on paper this felt like an intriguing episode with quite a fun concept. But as I said, it rushes through quite a lot of plot without really giving you that much of a hook, that much of a mystery. Well, the hook is good, it's just they don't really do that much with it, in my opinion. But they rush through a bunch of stuff, and then it just seems like the second half, it's most of the episode really on this ghost ship. They just don't do much with it. So first of all, a ghost ship is quite a cool setting for an X-Files episode. And the ship itself and some of the fog effects look pretty cool. Rob Bowman is like a good director on the X-Files. He knows how to do quite suspenseful scenes, so his direction is quite good. But my problem is they never really make the most of the setting and like the gimmick of the episode. Like they don't really use the ship in a very interesting way, and the plot just ends up being a little bit plodding, and I think it plays out in a very predictable and anticlimactic way, where it just turns into another kind of, by the end, Mulder and Scully, okay, they're in danger, but of course nothing serious is going to happen to them. And you can do those sorts of plots because you do need to have scenarios where they are in danger. But I think there's other episodes that have done a more interesting way of doing those plots. This one just feels like it's a little bit on the nose. Also, it does get quite cheesy near the end and quite melodramatic. Now, one way it gets cheesy is because of the aging makeup effects, which just aren't very good. And I know you can excuse it because of the time, because they're on a limited budget on network TV in the early 90s. Then again, there are some very good practical effects in the X-Files. So this does stand out as being really bad makeup effects. I guess when you're trying to do de-aging makeup effects and in this period and you don't maybe have the most money to do it, then that's a bit more tricky than creature effects or certain other effects. I think the effects on Scully, like her aging makeup effects, look a bit better than on Mulder, but neither of them look particularly good. And yeah, it just turns into a bit of a cheesy, melodramatic story by the end. Because there's some on-the-nose dialogue, like at one point Mulder says, "It's not fair, it's not our time." Scully drones on about religion. They draw that link because they think they're going to die. And religion actually is quite a big part of the X-Files. I've been talking about this recently. And I think it's done quite well. It is quite an interesting angle in the show. But this just isn't an episode where you really need this sort of quite clunky religion talk. And it is bad dialogue. That's part of the problem. And there are some clunky lines in this episode, and it seems like there's quite a lot of buzz talk in the episode, or just quite cliche, because you have this character who's the pilot who agrees to take them, who, as I said, knows a little bit about the crew and the history. And that actor I've seen in other things. I can't remember his name, but I do quite like him. He's got a decent amount of charisma. But he's just this one-note antagonist who's just a bit of a jerk, but in quite a one-note force sort of way. But at one point, they bump into this guy who he accuses of being a pilot, and he thinks is responsible. So he accuses him of being a pilot whaler. He says he supplies Japanese black market, etc. So there's just a lot of quite silly stuff like that in the episode that isn't very interesting. And there's drama between those two where he's accusing this guy of being involved, and at one point he's almost because they're both kind of held there by Mulder and Scully, but there's this talk of maybe them working together, and then he kills the guy out of the blue. And just that stuff, it's just not very interesting to watch. And he's a bit of a dull character, even though I quite like the actor. And there's certain things in this where you think they could have done a good job with this episode. In some ways, it being this simple and all in this one location, that could have been quite a lot of fun. And it's the sort of episode in the X-Files where it works, it really works. A much better version of this is, of course, Ice, which is one of the classics. But I think the difference in that episode is the characters were just much more interesting. You had a good cast in that one. And there was just more light and dark in those characters, and more that endeared you to them at times. And overall, it was just much more tense, and the setting was better used. They just don't really use this setting to its fullest potential, and overall I just don't think they made it into enough of a mystery. And for me, although there are worse episodes, quite a bit worse episodes, this one just feels like a slog, and it just feels really boring to me. I think it is, just from a boring point of view, one of the more boring ones, I think, anyway. So that's Dod Kalm, which I believe is a made-up term, because I know someone who's Norwegian, and it sounds like they've actually made it up for the episode, but it's meant to be dead calm, obviously. But That's my review anyway. Not one that I have fond memories of, and not one that's going to linger in the memories. I'll give it 4.5 because I do get pretty bored about it. I do get pretty bored watching this episode, even though there's definitely things in there that, okay, this could be promising, but then they squander it, I think. But coming up next time, a much stronger episode and a favourite of mine, and that is Humbug. So episode 20 of season 2. I'm getting near the end now, and I'm looking forward to rewatching Humbug. That's a bit of a favourite of mine. But let me know what you think of this episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe as always. Share me out on social media. Support me on patreon.com/borednow for just $1 a month. Or sign up for channel memberships. Keep watching TV and the X-Files. See you soon, guys.